Well, every Sunday night in Chicago recently has been a holiday. Everybody turns everything else off and watches The Last Dance over on ESPN. Well, today we are bringing you inside the dance to get you ready for the finale of The Last Dance. We have so many conversations to tell you about what you didn't hear in the documentary. More stories, more fun, more laughs with former Chicago Bulls, current Chicago Bulls, special guests, media members, folks who knew the Jordan era like nobody else. Jason Benetti here. I will be your guide through all of these conversations. We have so much fun to get to, so let's get rolling.
JB, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing? What's up with that hat? What are you doing to me right now?
Listen, man. Stacey, let it go. Let it go. Hey, that's why I got a hat on. I was looking like Bill Russell. I was like, oh, baby. Not all of us have John Paxson here now.
That's right. I know.
Look at him. Just smooth bald head. The goatee's tight. Look at him.
I did shave today. I was looking pretty grubby, so I did shave.
I'm looking pretty scrubby right now, too.
I got to say, I have no idea where this is going to go because we got three personalities here to talk about the first three-peat. Stacey King, Horace Grant, John Paxson. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Pax, I want to start with you. Your overall thoughts on this here documentary we've been watching.
It's been interesting for me just to see the footage, the old footage. You know, like I look back and I see Horace and Stacey, some of the practice footage. You know, with how we all looked. It's kind of nice to relive some of the times we had together because we're all getting a little bit older now.
What memories has it stirred up for you, Stacey?
Just the good times. I mean, I always consider we were the first dance, not the last dance. Those first three were special to each and every one of us because it was the first time we all experienced winning an NBA championship. So when people ask me what I think about The Last Dance, I always say it's great. It's great to look back. It's great for the Chicago Bulls fans to reminisce a little bit.
Horace, what do you think of how Horace Grant looked back in the day?
What a handsome dance. Handsome.
What was great from our end was and they showed it in this, we went through the struggles to get where we were. And we really, you know, on those teams, we built what the championships that we became. And that's what I take great pride in. I mean, we hung together and the organization stayed with all of us to get to that point. And I think we get a little bit overshadowed just because Dennis was such a personality. You know, when he got with the last three teams, they were already, you know, Michael and Scotty were already rock stars, but Dennis added that element. We didn't really have that. We were more the grinders that paved the way.
Stacey, I was wondering, as just watching that, you guys lose to the Pistons in 1990. What was it like in the locker room after that? Where were you mentally?
Well, you know, coming from Oklahoma, you know, I never really knew how bitter the rivalry was. And, you know, I had heard about it, but until you actually get into the front line and get into the fire, you really don't anticipate that it's as bad as everybody says. And I remember getting into a fight with Scott Hastings like the first time we played the Pistons and getting ejected. So that right there told me how serious it was. There was no love between the two teams. I mean, it was bitter rivalries. And I tell people all the time, there's no rivalries like we see now in today's game. Everybody's friends. Everybody's riding banana boats. Everybody wants to hang out. If I saw a Detroit Piston in the summer on vacation in the Bahamas in the lobby, you know, it'd be a Mexican standoff. I mean, literally, it would be who would blink first. But when we lost in 89 and 90, you know, I think for each man, everybody looked at each other and said, "Hey, no, we got to do something better." And I'll give Michael a little credit when it comes to, you know, something he said to us. You know, basically went down per man and said, "Hey, you know, this is what we have to do to beat this team." Our veteran players on that team also chimed in. Paxson, Cartwright, you know, Horace, you know, Scotty. To each man, I think we all took it personally. We all committed that summer. We worked out. We ran in the forest together, tempos in the hot, you know, Illinois sun. We played pickup games together. I think after that loss, we bonded even closer than what we were, and we became one. And that was a cool experience to be part of.
I want to move past the Pistons thing and go to the Los Angeles series. The next year, that huddle people talk about who's open and getting Pax the ball. What was that huddle like?
I thought it was a little bit more spirited. Like I remember, Phil was. I thought Phil was a little bit more rated R when he said, "Get Paxson to get your ball." It's like, I mean, that's what I remember. It was more on the Last Dance. It was more, "Hey, John's open, get him the ball." But I remember a different thing. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was caught up in the moment, but I remember more of a R-rated version.
Hey, and I think Pax said, "You damn right I'm open."
You damn, I've been open the whole game.
Pax, is that right? What you got on that?
Man, I'm pushing 60. My memory's going, but hey, look, Phil he never minced words, and if guys were open, he'd tell you. So, but I mean, Magic was leaving me that whole series, so I had some opportunities to get some looks. That whole series was fun because it was the first time, like Stacey mentioned earlier, that was what was great. It was our first opportunity, and the city had never been through it, the organization never been through it. And you're playing Magic. So, and now, you lose the first game at home, but we had great confidence in ourselves. And then we went out and rolled them out there in LA. So to me, I don't know how you guys feel. To me, that's always been the best one.
I agree.
I totally not knowing what to expect, being our first time in the finals, going up against a great organization, a great team like the Lakers, and all of their histories and their history and their players. So, man, the unknown, but being out there was one of the most exciting times of my entire life.
Let's go to 93, because there are these big moments in the Phoenix series, and Pax, I would start with you, but that's where everybody starts. So we don't talk about Pax's shot unless you get a stop, right, Horace, on the last play there.
I remember big Oliver Miller set a pick on MJ. MJ went down.
It was an illegal pick.
Was it?
It's green Pax, you got it.
No, it was an illegal pick. You watch it. It was illegal.
Yeah, it was an illegal pick for sure. And Kevin Johnson was coming off, and I was kind of like back. And I remember him going up right at the free throw line. I'm like, oh my goodness. I just happened to keep my balance a little bit, and fortunately came up with that block.
Pax, when you watch that shot back, where does your mind go? Like, what do you think about as you're watching it? Because you've seen it a million times, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first thing that I've always thought is all 5 guys on the floor touched the ball on that possession, which kind of speaks to everything we tried to be as a team. Is, even with the greatness of Michael Jordan, his ability to score. In those 3 championships, we went 8-1 on the road. We swept LA. We were 2-1 against Portland, and we won the 3 games out in Phoenix. Some reason that group had a resilience and resolve on the road, and we wouldn't have won those championships if we weren't an unbelievable road team.
I want to know from all 3 of you, and I'll start with Stacey, but I want to know from all 3 of you when the moment was that you knew it was going to be a special group.
I thought, honestly, and I said this to a lot of people, in that 89-90 season and Detroit's second championship, we had a lot of adversity going into Game 7. And people never talk about this. Everybody knows about the migraine headache that Scotty had, and that was huge for us. But we were without John Paxson, too. John Paxson hurt his knee in Game 6. So we go into that game shorthanded with 2 starters missing. And to be able to get to where we were without having 2 main guys, I think had we had both of those guys, I think we win that series in Game 7 in Detroit, and we're looking at a 4 run there. But when you're around these guys and you see the mentality, we had a great coach, we had a great coaching staff. I knew from when I got drafted here that this team was a championship team. It was just when it was going to happen.
We knew what we had to do as a unit, as a team, to get over that hump. The bonding, the trusting of each other, and the next year we showed it.
To me, the turning point was when the trade was made for Bill Cartwright. Bill gave us a leadership and a maturity that we hadn't had. His presence as a professional was so important to us. It's probably not ever discussed enough. And you guys brought it up, and we'd be remiss to not mention this, as great as Phil was. But Johnny Bach, he was a great man, but a great motivator. He was tough. His presence for us was important, as was Tex Winter's. Tex's teaching ability to me is one of the lost arts in our game. And again, it evolved over a lot of years, which I take great pride in. We took our lumps. We didn't just kind of walk into something. We earned everything we had. And I'm most proud of that.
If I had to go in the dark alley, Bill Cartwright, Horace Grant, Paxson, I'd have them with me. And Scotty. I throw Scotty out. Everybody on that team, we were tough-minded, tough individuals. And, the one thing we talked about the Last Dance earlier, the one thing that I was really sad about is Jerry Krause's betrayal in the Last Dance. I don't think he gets enough credit. The only player that's a constant that he didn't draft was Michael Jordan. But if you look at every player on that roster since, he either drafted or signed as a free agent and brought him in on that team. And I don't think he gets enough credit. If his name was Jerry West, he'd be considered the greatest general manager of all time because of the way he looked or his standoff attitude towards the media or whatever. I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but I think he deserves a lot of credit and he's not getting it. And his betrayal in the Last Dance, honestly, as a former player, it really bothered me.
I want to know from all three of you, and I'm going to ask the other group this too. First of all, who was the better three-peat? And then second of all, what was the difference between the two groups? Like, I know you were in yours and you weren't in the other one, but what do you see as the difference between the two groups and who was the better three-peat, even if you're just joking?
The first three-peat, not being biased, which I am.
You have to be. You played in it.
But I think the thing was that the first three-peat paved the way for the second three-peat.
Pax?
Well, I would hope that who are the three you're going to speak to from the next group?
It's Toni Kukoc, Bill Wennington, and Randy Brown.
Okay, I would hope that they would say that they feel theirs was
right.
I feel ours were just because I participated in it. We did, and we know how special that was. So I've never gotten into comparing teams. You have your own unique experience. So all I know is that, as we've said before, we really went through a unique experience. We were allowed to stay together for a long time to build what became the foundation of the Bulls' success. That's the most special thing to me.
Stacey, any final thoughts on that?
Well, of course, I'm going to say me and our team.
I had no idea what you were going to say.
Yeah, of course,
had no clue.
JB, who wouldn't say that, okay? But what I'm going to say is it's a win-win for the whole organization. It's a win-win for the city of Chicago that they were able to experience magical time between two different sets of three-peats. And I think that's all that matters is that, hey, we represented Chicago to the fullest. We represented the organization to the fullest. And maybe we can get it going here in Chicago again because I would love to be a fan on the outside looking in, like all the great players, Artis Gilmore, Chet Walker, Bob Love, all those guys who paved the way for all of us to come on and play in this franchise and to carry what they started, to be able to do that with this younger group of kids coming in here that are playing for the Bulls right now, that we could, be part of that as old Bulls spectators. That would be so cool to be part of that. So hopefully it'll be in the near future before I get to be like 90 years old and I can't celebrate.
Hey, look, it's been awesome to chat with you guys. I do have to say, Stacey, we got to get you a new hat collection.
Hey, listen, you know what? Maybe if Jerry would send me some White Sox gear. Look, I'm repping my Bulls though. Look, I'm repping Bulls. But
look, dude,
my wife.
Look, this is yours. I'm gonna send this to you.
Listen, I've been working with you now for 2 years, JB, and you like to start trouble, okay? First of all,
I like to start trouble. You showed up with a Cub hat on.
First of all, I'm looking like a guy that played in the 1970s. I have an afro underneath this hat. I'm not willing, under the quarantine situation, I have not been able to get to my barber. So therefore, my wife is cutting my hair, and maybe I don't want the public to see it, JB, but it's not about the hat. It's about the man under the hat, okay?
This is enough of this.
I think it's time to wrap it up, Jason. I think
you're right, Pax. John Paxson, Stacey King, Horace Grant. This has been awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, JB.
All righty.
All right, boys. I'll see you.
Coming up next, the writer who put all of it out there, the Hall of Famer, Sam Smith. He wrote Jordan Rules. He's got story upon story about the era, and he joins us after this.
I've really enjoyed watching The Last Dance because it's brought back so many memories. First of all, I first encountered Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls when I was in law school in Chicago at the University of Chicago in the mid-'80s. And the team was transformational then, and watching these, each episode brings back special memories. I mean, of course, about that 97-98 season, but I thought the director did a fantastic job taking you back in time as well to all those earlier moments with the Bulls. And as to that 97-98 season, of course, I was directly involved with this project back then because I was running NBA Entertainment. And first of all, it would have never happened if Jerry Reinsdorf hadn't given us all permission to be a fly in the wall. And of course, Phil Jackson and then Michael Jordan allowed it to happen. But each episode has been particularly meaningful to me, and I think for a whole generation of fans who never understood how special these Chicago Bulls teams were, it will bring NBA basketball to life. So I hope everyone is continuing to enjoy this series.
Well, I am so pleased to be joined by the Hall of Fame scribe, the man who graced everyone at Pace University with his presence, the Fort Wayne News Sentinel. So many places across the country know his name, Sam Smith. Thank you so much for joining us, you Hall of Famer, you. So you've been in this documentary quite a bit. You've been watching it, I'm sure. What do you think so far?
I think the parts about me have saved it, basically. This thing is going down the drain if I'm not involved in it. I think that's pretty clear, right?
Absolutely. That's my takeaway.
Yeah. Well, other than our view of it, actually, what it is the Michael Jordan story. First of all, it's terrific. It's great for his legacy. It's great for Chicago. I think it's great for the Bulls too, because I think it's showing not only a great era, but what a great era means if you have it in Chicago. You know, in a one sort of team NBA, Chicago, this is the kind of thing that can happen. Obviously, you can't get Michael Jordan all the time, but it's great for the nostalgia for us. But it's also, to me, the best thing about it is to see Michael as we saw him, as we knew him in the 80s, open, friendly, candid, fun, harsh sometimes, but, with a sort of a twinkle in his eye. So I've enjoyed that people have gotten to see Michael that so many of us knew, who grew so reclusive in recent years that people really didn't get a sense of him other than some sort of image or vision. And now there's some more humanity to him than a lot of people have seen in recent decades.
You knew Michael very early on. What do you think young Michael would say about Michael now?
I'll really kick his ass. I think he's grown up to be the kind, other than fabulously wealthy, that you never imagined. He was a great businessman. He understood the marketing. He played along with it, but he was really about, and what he said rings true all the way through it. He went into it. He was always just about the game. And so that to me is carried through. And that's where you saw the delight in his eyes about the basketball stuff, because with all the other stuff, because a lot of people have said, why is he doing this? He's a billionaire, probably working on a second billion, owns a basketball team, Charlotte, just built a golf course in Naples, Jupiter, where he lives, $200,000 entry fees. What does he need this for? And because I think it brings him back to the game, and then, that first love of it. And I think, the young Michael would see this in Michael today.
Why so competitive?
His father said the interesting thing, when they said about the gambling thing came up. He said, Michael doesn't have a gambling problem. He has a competitiveness problem. And so Michael, probably from a young age, was trying to prove himself to his dad all the time. When he first came in as a freshman at North Carolina, and this is a dynasty of basketball for many years, and it was at the time. And so he's in practice, he's dunking on guys and then coming back into the locker room and writing down on the board how many times he dunked on Worthy, how many times he dunked on Perkins. And, these are all Americans about to be top, 3 and 4 picks in the draft. And this freshman kid is coming in, challenging him right away. I'll dunk in your face. I think that's just who he was. That's just the nature of it. And that's part of the game. The game is about competition. And he just always took it to this extraordinary level.
What made you write the book, Sam?
I was thinking 30 years from now, there's going to be a documentary, and Michael is going to say, yeah.
You nailed it. You had it.
Exactly. I mean, it really was an innocent sort of project in the sense that, it really was me saying, I've kind of reached my dream, sort of like you. I've heard you say about wanting to broadcast your hometown team and all that sort of stuff. And at the time, I met a number of writers who'd written books, and I thought, well, they're not very smart. Maybe I can do that too. I'll have a book, and someday I'll put it up on my shelf, and I'll bring people around and say, I wrote a book back then. And so I just started as sort of a diary project, just to, as an experience to do a book. And more than a lot of things, talent is great, but timing is a lot more important. Right time, right place, right situation. The year I happened to pick, Michael Jordan didn't break his foot in the third game like he did his second year. He ended up winning a title and beating Magic and the Lakers. So there were other events right around the time that I didn't have a lot of control of that raised Michael's profile in the book as well.
You mentioned some controversy, and I know people have been talking about for years and decades the Republicans buy sneakers too comment. I know you wrote a piece on Bulls.com, but what's your take on all of that?
I was a little surprised because, I wrote this piece for Bulls.com, defending him because I kind of felt badly about what had happened. He's really been treated unfairly on this because, just to go back a little bit, in the 80s, the NBA was in a lot of trouble. Even Bird and Magic come along, this great rivalry out of college, but the league is still struggling. And if you go back, wasn't Magic, wasn't Bird, Kareem, who was very, politically active, boycotted the '68 Olympics, sat with Ali when he was banned from boxing, never said a word about this stuff. So, they were kind of schooled about, look, let's stay out of politics, let's stay out of controversial issues until we, let's get the league up on its feet. And so I'm bothering Michael about this. And I can tell in the back of his mind, he knows I got to stay away from this topic. So he comes up with the great one-liner, just to it was actually to get rid of me. Republicans wear sneakers too. So, and that's what Michael did. He said he's always had the last word. The competitive nature is he's going to take the last shot. He's going to have the last word in a debate.
Who was best at giving it back to Michael?
Probably Horace was the one. Horace wasn't as quick verbally, but he would challenge Michael. And I think you've seen that come out in some of the documentary. Michael's settling scores too. Michael takes names and he doesn't forget. It's sort of like the Seinfeld Festivus holiday with Michael alongside.
The airing of grievances. He's
got grievances to air, and you're always going to hear Michael's grievances, whatever they might be. It was really amazing, and that's the great thing about the documentary too. Now it's so focused on Michael, obviously, but there's so many great human and biographical elements with Scotty and Phil Jackson and some of the others, and I think that's what I was trying to do in the book too, to show the richness of a team. That Michael Jordan is the central figure, but all these amazing figures grouped together, and what Phil Jackson has done with them.
Sam Smith, thank you so much for joining us from, is that Jordan Rules Mansion number 3 you're in right now? I can't tell.
I wish I was in number 2, which is in a sunny place, and we know we're not getting that till July here.
Sam, thank you so much. Great insight. Fantastic. Coming up next, if you've ever debated your family, which three-peat was better? I mean, it's fun to talk about, right? We have the guys from 96 through 98. Bill Wennington, Toni Kukoc, Randy Brown. We'll ask them, which three-peat was better? You won't believe their answer. Well, you might. We'll find out inside the dance.
So I walk over to MJ, he's, his shirt's off, he's got his back turned to me, he's in his North Carolina shorts, he's getting dressed. And I walk over and I rub him twice. Now that I look back on it, it was kind of awkward. So he looks at me, he's like, what are you doing? He said, oh man, I used to touch your poster when I was in college, man, it used to bring me luck. He said, man, get away from me, dude. Don't be doing that. I'm like, and I didn't think it was weird at the time, but then I looked back and I said, oh yeah, that might have been a little bit crossing the line. But after that, I didn't have to touch him anymore. He said, don't ever touch me again. I'm on your team. So I'm like, okay, cool. But your mind tells you, it's a mind thing. You got to believe in something.
Chicago Bulls have won their first ever NBA championship.
So glad to be joined by the guys from the second three-peat. Toni Kukoc, Randy Brown, and Santa Claus are here. Great to have all of you. Bill Wennington, look, we have so many pressing things to discuss about The Last Dance, but I want to start with the most important. Why do you have a slot machine?
Because Vegas is too far away, so I just go downstairs and plop my quarters in and have fun.
Do you use it, and where did you get it?
It's considered an antique, and I do use it occasionally. I used to use it a lot more, but now it's more of a decoration, but it does work.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm not even going to ask about that thing behind you. So, Randy, what's your overall opinion on the documentary so far?
It's bringing back a lot of memories. I'm watching it as a fan, again. So it was good to see the different insights of everybody having in the light of the pandemic going on. I think this puts the nation in a good space. We're hurting as a nation, and to see this camera crew follow the greatest team ever to play, man, it became historical. And I'm pretty sure my teammates and I didn't see this coming. So it's good to see.
Bill, as you're watching this, what kind of messages are you getting from people, and what's your takeaway from watching the whole thing?
Well, the people that know me know I've kind of talked about it before, and they talk about what a fierce competitor Michael was, and they asked, was he really that hard on players? And yeah, he was, because he wanted to win, and he was pushing us. But I don't think people that don't play sports, they don't understand that that's kind of the way most locker rooms were guys pushing. Now, Michael took it to a different level and brought it up, but the kibitzing and the pushing of each other and trying to make each other better and poking fun at each other was going on in every locker room I've been in, going back to high school. But Michael brought it to a different level because he wanted to win, and he was making us all feel the pressure in practice so that in the games it would be easy for us and we would be prepared to go out there. And he was also testing us to find out if we were good enough to be there.
What was it like when you first met Michael? What was your first meeting like, Randy, when you first got to know him? What was that like?
Kid growing up in Chicago, Michael was my idol. I grew up watching Michael Jordan, and when I came to the Bulls in '95, that was my 5th year in the NBA, and right off the bat, I thought I knew a lot about the NBA, but walking to that gym, seeing Michael, Scotty, and Dennis, and then Toni Kukoc, and Bill Wennington, I was in shock all over again. I had to learn how to practice.
What did you do when you wanted to get under Michael's skin?
Speak Croatian because he didn't understand it. that was the only way. Well, but we all understood that he is so competitive that he's going to bring anything and everything, I think we accepted that thing.
Well, I tried not to get under his skin that often.
I don't believe that for a second, knowing you.
Exactly.
But it was easy. All you had to do was beat him at something. Now that's hard. That's very hard to do. But fortunately for me, I'd met Michael when I was McDonald's All-American, and back in 1981. And on the bus, I saw that competitive nature, and I figured it out really quick back then, and how good he was going to be, because he wanted to compete at pretty much everything. And after that, fortunately, St. John's played North Carolina, and we won. We only played one time. So all I had to do was bring that up and say, how many times did North Carolina you St. John's? And that's all it takes, because he doesn't like to lose.
That's awesome. All of your favorite memories of the three-peat, I'm sure you have a ton of them, and we've heard so many of them. But Randy, I want to start with you. Yeah. What's a moment that you come back to that you're like, I cherish that about the second three-peat?
My most, my favorite teammate broke my heart. Toni Kukoc not giving me that ball during the '96 championship just really, it set me back. It set me back, and but TK,
it was a toss up in between you and him who's going to grab it first.
It was TK, and TK,
I kind of figured Michael wanted a ball. I didn't know you wanted a ball too.
I know, TK. I couldn't remember TK had happened until I saw it last night, and I'm right in front of TK, and TK sees me, and he sees Michael, and TK's like, you know what? I got to make a decision here. And he made the right decision. It was Father's Day. He gave it to Michael, which ended up being the right thing to do, TK.
If I was smarter, I would have run the other way with the ball.
Yes.
I would have ran.
You can't do that anymore.
I had a feeling MJ wanted that ball.
Yeah, I did too. It was Father's Day. It was the right thing to do, TK.
Yeah, it was a lot of things that worked out well that day. So I remember one moment. Bill's going to know this. We were watching, what is the name of the movie? The whistling thing.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers. I have absolutely no idea how that whistle stuck in my head. To the point I really came to the
TK, I remember
and
that.
started whistling that thing. And after like 30 minutes of me like shooting the ball, whistling, not paying attention, like everybody's kind of looking at me, but I see Phil going absolutely crazy about it. And he starts screaming at me like, are you going to stop with that? It's really annoying. And I said, okay, I'm sorry, I forgot.
There's no particular game or one instance in a game that you remember, but being with the guys every day and the friendships that we had and the unity that we had and the bond that everyone created, it was really a special team that everyone got along well. There was a couple little cliques, but really that whole team hung out together and did things together, and you could see that every day after practice in the training room, and the trash talking and the kibitzing that was going on. It was just so much fun to be part of that.
When you see Dennis Rodman's face pop up, what's the first thing you think of? Anybody?
Fun.
Shy.
Entertainer. Great teammate.
You said entertainer, Randy. That's interesting to me. What do you mean by that?
He would, because Bill and TK knows Dennis. When the camera's not on, you can't get 2 words out of the guy. And he knew exactly what he was doing. He would piss somebody off, and when that camera goes off, he look at you, he pat you on the back, he start laughing because he knew he was an entertainer. A lot of people don't understand. This guy was one of the smartest guys I've ever met. On that basketball court, he knew everything. There was to know about defensive strategies and all that stuff. But, when the lights came on, he became an entertainer. He put on a show for his fans.
All right, Bill, I am going to ask, what is that thing behind you? What is that?
That's Bad Bill. He's my alter ego. He drinks and smokes a lot more than I do.
Awesome.
So that makes you good, Bill?
Yes.
Tony, are we buying this?
As good as it can be. We know better.
I mean, I do want to know, you all have such personalities, and the amazing thing is it all fit together. I want to know why Phil was so important to all of you.
Phil had the way how to bring everybody in. That was the one thing that I loved about him, that he would take time with every individual and find a way to talk to him, to listen what he had to say, to learn about the history, the family, and everything else.
1 through 15, he treated everybody the same. I don't think Bill and TK, I don't think you guys remember, he made a statement of, when you're in the rotation, there's always good moments for you, but those rest of the guys were important to him. The guys that weren't in the rotation, the guys that weren't playing, he made sure we stayed engaged.
That's really it in a nutshell. And Phil was so unique and the best coach that I played for because of his techniques. And you have 12 egos, strong egos that were, in the Americans' case, the best players in college on their teams. And in Tony's case, one of the best, if not the best player over in Europe at the time. And he was able to keep us happy in our roles and make us understand that we were very vital and important to the team, and the roles that we had needed to be done, and just kept us on point that way.
Yep.
Well, guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. And as we leave, you guys were the better three-peat, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Just making sure about that. And Bill,
just so you know, they saved the best for last.
That's right. That's exactly.
Everybody's about the numbers, so just check the numbers.
Yeah.
Well, this was absolutely awesome. Randy Brown, Toni Kukoc, Bill Wennington, thank you so much. And Bill, if that guy's guarding the door, don't walk through that door. I don't know what's on the other side.
The other side is on the other side.
Yeah, no thanks on that.
Hey, B-Dubs, TK, what time is it? What time is it?
Team time!
Who?
Coming up next, Michael Jordan from North Carolina. We go down to North Carolina to talk to two guys who know the Tar Heels very well. Coby White, current Bull, and Roy Williams, the guy who helped recruit Michael Jordan to North Carolina. They join us to talk MJ and The Last Dance inside the dance after this.
My favorite Jordan memory is the last shot against the Utah Jazz.
My family screaming and shouting, we did it, the Bulls won.
He was coming out of the elevator and I said, Michael!
Derrick Rose's buzzer beater against the Cavs in the playoffs.
Did you see it? The black and the red.
I cried my eyes out. I was so happy.
The 1996 championships. Remember it like it was yesterday.
I don't think we would have been a championship year if we didn't push each other. Yeah. If we weren't competitive, if I wasn't making you better, you making me better as a player, and on down the line for everybody else. I mean, we all knew MJ was the number one guy.
Being ACC Player of the Year, I'm coming in, I'm average over 20 points and 12, 13 rebounds in college. I want the damn ball.
Yeah.
But then you look over there, number 23, like, hell no.
We all come from programs where we were the number one guy, and I think our personalities allowed us to say, hey, look, there's something bigger than ourselves. It's about championships.
It is a pleasure to be joined by these two gentlemen. Coby White, former North Carolina Tar Heel, current Chicago Bull, and his coach, and the guy who helped bring in Michael Jordan to Carolina, the Hall of Famer, Roy Williams. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Nice to be here, Jason.
Coach, I want to start with you. Just watching the doc, your first thoughts on everything you've seen so far.
I've just been blown away, and I lived much of it, especially the early episodes, his time here, and in the 98 finals. I was at one of the games going through it with Michael and still talking to Michael today. I talked to him last week. It's made me appreciate him even more, and I really love it for guys like Coby, because they know that some of the things, I think I even said it on the first episode, I said Michael Jordan's the only guy I've ever known who could turn it on and turn it off, and he never freaking turned it off. And Coby remembers hearing that, but no, it's I'm setting my schedule so I don't miss any. I just think it's been fantastic. Michael's really shown the personal side, the emotional side, as we saw last night. But he was the ultimate competitor, the most focused guy I've ever been around in my life.
Coby, you didn't live any of the championships. What's it like for you watching all this?
It's amazing, man. It's amazing just to see that and his competitive nature and to see everything up close. And it makes you have a better understanding of who he was and what type of guy he was, and not just what you hear from other people. It's been great. I haven't missed any second of it. I learned a lot, and just from him. And now I truly know why everybody wants to be like Mike. So.
Coby, I saw you nodding when Coach was talking about Michael using the phrase that he'd used before. How much did you hear about Michael when you were playing at Carolina?
I heard a good amount, but that one phrase is probably the first thing that I heard, and it always stuck with me since then. So that phrase, it stands out. So especially when I heard it on the documentary, because in the previews, it showed Coach saying that before the documentary actually dropped.
Yeah.
So I told my brother about how, that's the first thing I heard him say about Michael Jordan when I got on campus.
Coach, what was young Michael like?
He was a kid. There's no question about that. He loved to have fun. He loved to talk. I've said this many times, the only thing Michael did better than play was talk. If he were to see me with my beard right now, there's no telling what he would be saying. But he came in as a freshman at 6'4.5", very athletic, not really that sound fundamentally, but he had the pieces. He got better every year. I mean, as a freshman, he was 6'4.5", just about a half-inch shorter than Coby, just a little bit. He had the whole package. God had blessed him, and then what he did is he used it, and he became the most competitive guy I've ever seen in my life. And I challenged him at the start of his freshman year about playing hard and harder than everybody else. And he told me his freshman year, he said, "You'll never see anybody play harder than me." And I remember I could walk down to the spot beside the track behind Carmichael Auditorium and sit down in the grass within 5 feet of where I was sitting today. He told me that.
What was it inside of him that made that happen? I watched the documentary and say, where did that all come from?
I think it came from his parents. They gave him the confidence to try, and he had this inner desire that very few people have, but people do. But he did something with it, and I think that's the difference. He had this desire to be a great player. Told me he wanted to be the best player that ever played at North Carolina, and I think that every day in practice he tried to show that, and he got better and better. Coby, he didn't win his first Defensive Player of the Game award his freshman year until the national championship game. Coby won his first one about his 7th game.
Yeah.
Coby, when you're watching this, how much do you just want to go play basketball and beat somebody?
Every athlete just wants to go outside and shoot hoops, go work out, any way to get better. Just try to motivate. It's such a motivation watching that. In my profession, we aspire to be like Mike. So through watching that documentary, it gives me a lot of motivation to, continue to keep what I'm doing and stay on the right path to get better. But, during the watching it, you just want to go grab a basketball and get better and, get up shots and run sprints and stuff.
You're still a young kid to me. Don't ever leave. You're never going to change with me, big fella. But Coby worked unbelievably hard. Coby got better. As the season got along, he got better and better and better. And the Chicago fans are going to love him for a long time. And I thought he did some great things this year, his rookie year with the Bulls.
I was going to ask Coby, the first time you heard from North Carolina, what are you thinking when you hear that?
North Carolina at guard, Coby White.
Going through my head was just a blessing. A dream of mine is to play, to start in the NBA. Not many people can say they did that, so for me, when I hear, from North Carolina, 6'4" guard, it means a lot. It meant a lot to me. And, at the moment, I'm focused on the game, locked in. I'm trying to lead my team to a win. So, but afterwards, you sit down and you realize, that, part of your dream has come true.
Jason, let me tell you a story. Did they really announce you at 6'4" from North Carolina?
Yeah, they.
Jason, I'll tell you, we measured him. He's 6'4.5", and I said, "I'm gonna call you 6'4.5", and he kept saying, "Coach, I'm 6'5". And I said, "No, you're 6'4.5". But I said, when you win the Defensive Player of the Game award, then I'll start calling you 6'5". So after that 7th game or something like that, I started calling him 6'5" the rest of his time. So we got to get the announcer to call you 6'5".
We'll get on that.
I offered Coby a scholarship the summer after his sophomore year. I just fell in love with the way he played, and every time I talked to him, and particularly early on, he and his dad and his mom came and played pickup with our guys, and having a conversation that night with his dad is one of the best I've ever had with anybody.
What was young Coby like as you were recruiting him?
He had a viciousness about him of attacking the basket that I loved, and he could shoot the ball as well. But at 6'5", he could handle the ball. But I loved his determination to attack the basket, to make plays. Saw him in one high school game have 5 3-pointers and 5 dunks in the same game, and that's a pretty great variety for a point guard. And he made passes instinctively, and he enjoyed winning. He was the leading scorer in North Carolina basketball history, and and I'm not trying to suck up to him right now, but one of the nicest young men I've ever known in my life, and his mom and dad are just off the charts, and I loved his dad. His dad called me one night. I'd call him periodically, but he called me one night and told me he was so glad that Coby was going to play for me. And I told him at that time he had already gotten sick, and we knew he was sick. And I said, he's going to be an NBA player. And he said, I want you to tell him when he's ready. But his dad was a good player. Told great stories, didn't he, Coby?
Yeah, for sure.
But no, just great people. But Coby's going to be an NBA player for a long time, get better every year. And I think Coby White's eventually going to be an NBA All-Star.
Coby, when did Coach tell you were ready?
He didn't tell me I was ready until after the season. We had a good meeting, and he basically, told me that he felt like I was ready to make the transition to the NBA. When I got that blessing, I knew that, it was time for me to go. I won't make a decision until I talk to Coach Williams. Obviously, everybody knows he has a big influence on my life.
My last question, Coach, is surrounding George Karl. If you were at a dinner and you were playing against Michael in the finals and you saw him across the restaurant, how would you have handled that? Because Michael took a lot of motivation from George not mentioning anything to him and just walking out. Mm-hmm. How would you have dealt with that if you were playing against Michael in the finals as the coach?
Well, I never coached in the NBA against Michael, and Michael had so many ways of trying to become motivated. But there's no doubt in my mind I would go over to Michael Jordan, and not in today's times because of coronavirus, but there's no doubt in my mind that I would have gone over to Michael and hugged him and said, I hope you play great tomorrow night, but I hope we win. And oh, by the way, I told the waiter that you would pick up my tab, and then I would run out as fast as I could.
Outstanding. And Coby, before we let you go, what are you up to right now? Bulls fans want to know how you spending your time and what are you doing?
Right now, I'm just working out when I can, being with my family, being my mom, and my sister, and her son and daughter, my niece and nephew. So just doing what everybody else is doing, trying to stay safe and trying to stay sane during this time. It's starting to change a little bit. Hopefully, continue to change and get better.
What we understand, 2 games in a row coming off the bench, getting 30, and 2 games in a row as a rookie in Chicago Bulls history. The last guy to do that was Michael Jordan. And I'm not trying to say that that's who you are, but guys, let's understand Coby White's going to be sensational in Chicago for a long time.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you very much. Coby White, Roy Williams, it's so good to see you together again, even if we can't be in the same place. Thank you for spending the time.
No problem. Thank you
very much. Good to see you, big fella.
Yes, sir. You too, Coach.
Coming up next, I know you're wondering, what's after this for the Chicago Bulls? What does the next generation of Bulls look like? We're going to find out. Arturas Karnisovas, Mark Eversley, the Brain Trust, the new guys to guide the Bulls into the next generation and the next era. They will join us when we come back inside the dance.
Bulls are not Beatles, but it's like United States team. It didn't matter if you played in New York or in LA, in Miami, in Seattle. You had Bulls jerseys, Bulls fans. We would arrive in a hotel at 3 o'clock in the morning. It would be 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 people
people were just so excited to see the Bulls coming to town. And honestly, it was a little bit more of a motivation for you. And we were pretty good pretty much every night. And that year was 72 wins.
The Chicago Bulls have won their 44th in a row at home.
Late in the season, somebody said, nobody won 70 games, ever.
Steve Kerr for three. Yes. Rodman with the big rebound, his 17th of the game.
The Bulls have won 70, what no team has done before.
Once we reached the 70 wins, it was like a secondary thing after that. Let's everybody be healthy for a playoffs.
You rest the guys a little bit, or do you go right after it?
You bet. Championships, what we're after.
All right, we've talked a lot of Bulls history, and now we are here to talk about the next phase of the Bulls. I am joined by Arturas Karnisovas, the Executive Vice President for Basketball Operations, and Mark Eversley, the new General Manager of the Bulls. Guys, thank you so much for stopping by.
How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
I'm fantastic. We've talked so much Last Dance, and I know there's a little bit of the Last Dance, Arturas, that inspired you in terms of bringing Mark on. How did that happen?
Well, the short version of it is when we settle on Mark, I was going to call him on Monday morning. But while watching the documentary, it kind of got emotional and said, why should I wait? And texted him to make sure that he's still awake, but because he's on the East Coast time. So he responded yes, because he's rewatching it now on his couch. So I called him up and offered him a job. So,
Mark, what are you thinking when you get that text?
So it's funny because I was talking to Michael Reinsdorf, and he had called me at about 8:15, and I thought, you know what? It's going to take about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. We'll have a nice chat, and then I can sit down and watch The Last Dance. We ended up speaking for about an hour and a half, so I had to tape The Last Dance. So I got off the phone with Michael, cue up ESPN and put on the DVR, and, I'm watching The Last Dance, and, I watched the first episode, take a little break and put on the second episode, and I get this text from Arturas, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm watching The Last Dance. He says, you want to talk in the morning or do you want to talk now? And I said, Arturas, I haven't slept in 10 days, man. You might as well just call me right now. So he called me right away and, offered me the job, and, here we are today. So obviously very thrilled, and, it's a terrific opportunity. I'm really pleased.
The 90s Bulls keep inspiring. I want to, before we move on to the next generation of the Bulls, I want to ask both of you, Arturas first, you were playing during the time of all this and the 90s Bulls. What did they mean to you back then, and what's it like watching it now?
My passion was born obviously in the 80s when I was still in Lithuania as a teenager, when Michael was drafted by Chicago Bulls. So, in the early 90s, when I was in college, that was an opportunity to watch more Bulls basketball, and obviously they were dominating. And then I got an opportunity actually to catch the last championship team when I was playing for Olympiacos, in that first episode that starts with Paris. I was actually playing in that game. So that was, special, and by watching this documentary, it's just great memories.
Mark, I know you have a playing background, but you also were in the Nike game, and you were dealing with branding and marketing and things like that. What lens do you watch this through?
So obviously, working with Nike back in the day, Michael was the brand at the time. And, for me, watching Michael grow into the player that he became was special. Fast forward to today, and, now I'm working for, this iconic franchise that he helped build is really neat for me. So it's special.
To that point, Mark, when you step back and you say, I'm the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, what do you think?
You sound like one of my friends. It's obviously incredibly special. This is a iconic franchise. It's an iconic city. It's an unbelievable sports city. And to be named general manager is just a dream come true. I'm very fortunate to be where I am today, and I'm thankful to the organization for giving me an opportunity to help lead this franchise back to where the fans want it to be. And that's, competing for championships and playing meaningful games in spring.
Arturas, what's the first step in getting there? What Mark's talking about, what's the first step? What will we see in the near term?
Well, for us, it's obviously to get to Chicago, to get on the ground, to put our boots on the ground, to come to a practice facility, meet the staff, keep evaluating, every department that is right now in the organization and see what we have. Meet the current staff, meet the coaching staff, spend time with players. The draft, free agency, keep upgrading the team, keep adding talent.
Mark, what kind of people do you like to have around you?
I love people who are passionate about what they do. I love being around people with high character. I love people who are committed to, chasing a dream. The one thing that stuck out for me in The Last Dance is just Michael Jordan's just competitive nature. I think if we can surround ourselves with people like that, who share that passion, who share that commitment, who share that drive, I think we'll be in really, really good shape. The sky's the limit for this franchise.
How do you evaluate walking into a new franchise? You have no real blueprint for all this. What are you using to lean on as you start to move the Bulls forward?
With Mark now, we've running scouting Zoom meetings, with our scouting staff and basketball operations. Then we get on a call with coaches. We're discussing what's been done in the past, what we can do better. This situation is kind of getting us closer because we're probably even talking more to each other. And I'm talking about not only with Bulls organization, I'm talking about, I'm on a bunch of Zoom calls with other teams and other executives. And we're kind of united in this situation to try to find solutions and, looking for answers.
Mark, what are those scouting calls like? What can you do on Zoom as you go through this?
It's a great opportunity to get with your staff and talk about players. You can talk about the draft. We've been able to get on the phone with prospects and, interview them, get to know them a little bit better. Obviously, you'd love to be in person with them in the same room and, look at things like body language, look at, those types of things. But it's a great opportunity for us to sit with our staff and talk about players, strengths, weaknesses, things they need to work on. And again, anytime you can have an interaction with a player, whether it's in person or over a Zoom phone call, it's a touch point to where you can evaluate the prospect and see if you can envision them being a part of your organization moving forward.
It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I cannot wait to see this next generation of the Bulls. And I'm excited for you all because you've had all this time now to jump out and go do it. And I can tell that you really are looking forward to it. So thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that'll do it for Inside the Dance. And what a fun romp through the 90s and through that era of the Bulls with so many special guests and so many wonderful stories. We hope you had some laughs as well along the way. But we thank you for joining us, and to everybody from Bulls TV for putting it together. And by the way, I cannot wait to see what happens next for the Chicago Bulls. It is a proud, wonderful, historic franchise that we're seeing every Sunday night as The Last Dance closes. And it's thrilling to see the next generation of the Bulls starting to come to life. So we look forward to that. We thank you for joining us. For everybody at Bulls TV, I'm Jason Benetti. Enjoy the finale of The Last Dance.